Hi, my name is Catherine Messick, and I'm recording this for the Module 3 IEP evaluation tool. The student I chose for my case study was Bobby Gibson. He is a middle school student at Jayhawk Middle School, and he has autism spectrum disorder. He's considered higher functioning, so he's in the general education classroom quite a bit. His strengths appear to be in writing. He is quite creative. He likes very specific types of music. He also has some weaknesses as well. A lot of these are more behavioral and social in nature. He also has some deficiencies within mathematics, which proves to be quite difficult for him, and in obviously group assignments or group work. I've actually worked quite a bit on Bobby Gibson as I am in the Autism Spectrum Disorder Leadership master's program. And if anyone is interested, if you go to Bobby Gibson's case study and you go to the personal accounts or interviews section, at the very bottom of the page, there's one that's the parent perspective of autism spectrum disorder, and that is actually a video that I did for a previous class through KU. In addition to this, explain how you completed the evaluation. I went through the IEP pretty in depth, and there were some different issues that I kind of had with, first of all, how it's laid out. Some of the information is not easily accessible. You have to scroll through quite several pages just to see who is even in attendance for the meeting. It's actually at the end of the IEP, which here in Missouri, it's typically at the beginning of the IEP where it's listed everybody that's in attendance of the meeting. So that was kind of different for me to have to look through all of that information just to figure out who was even there. The behavioral analyst, or behavioral specialist, I should say, was an addition there. I'm not sure if that was meant to be somebody who can also evaluate the assessments or not. So that would be something that may be lacking. Also, assessment scores were not listed as scores. They were listed as generalized categories of average, below average, and so that is a deficiency within the IEP, that those scores need to be specific. I also found that there were some issues with the parents having done an informal assessment, but none of that informal assessment material made it into the IEP. That's very strange. Having gone through several IEP meetings here in the state of Missouri, I have found that the parent concerns and assessment in general is always a part of the IEPs in this couple of school districts that I've worked with. So that was a little bit odd. So I'd say assessment scores not being listed specifically, and the informal assessment from the parents is definitely lacking in this particular IEP. In addition to that, I do think that the goals measured are a reflection of Bobby's abilities. However, I do not think how they are assessing the data from them is correct. A lot of them is just from work samples. Okay, well, if Bobby's not feeling like working, that's not necessarily a reflection of what he has knowledge base on, as well as some of them were assessed through gradebook. Well, as many of us know that students in special education, sometimes days are rough, and sometimes the gradebook is not necessarily a pure reflection of what knowledge base they have, especially for an autistic student, having a lot of experience dealing with someone with autism, as in the case of my son. I know that if you gave a work sample from any given day, that doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't understand or know the concept. In fact, if anything, sometimes the excessive amount of work and repetition is actually kind of annoying to students who are neurodiverse, and so the need for constant repetition, if they have a basic understanding, is often something that they don't enjoy doing. And so I think that the way that they're collecting data for him, I think that all of that needs to change. It shouldn't just be from a grade book. It shouldn't just be from generalized work samples and things like that. I think they need to come up with a little bit better plan for that. I also felt like some of the inaccuracies were, some things were he would master it by a percentage, and some other things it would be you know, 6 out of 8 or 3 out of 5. So I think maybe having more consistency throughout that. And then lastly, there's spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes throughout. And so if this is truly a contract between parents and the school district, those things need to be clarified and you know, fixed. So anyway, that's my overall interpretation of Bobby Gibson, student with autism spectrum disorder. Thanks.